Hi, everybody. We're going to start out with a question we had from one of our viewers named Amber. And the question she had was, she wanted to hear the difference between surface love and unconditional love, how love in general is related to acceptance, and how one's level of personal self-love and acceptance is mirrored within their physical experience. And then she gives her opinion on it. She says that, I feel like if people could connect love and acceptance and understand the difference between surface acceptance and deep acceptance, it would clear up a lot of confusion for people.
Yeah. And remember, the root of everything is love. And the opposite is fear, right? And we are in this clash of worlds right now between love and fear.
Absolutely. So
So
how would you define surface love? What
I would say conditional love. In a space where, like, you...
Now, here's my question.
Maybe it's
Is conditional love actually love?
Yeah, I think there are different levels of love.
Yeah, because I think to the person, in the moment, it does feel like real love.
But is it love or is it desire?
But we're coming from a place... We're coming from a place, like, people might not even know what love is and think it's love.
Mm-hmm.
I think love is an umbrella, you know? And you can have underneath it compassion, caring. You could have attraction. You can have, all these subtopics underneath the umbrella of love. And then you can have pure unconditional love, which is rare. And you can have surface love, which might be, in a simple relationship maybe. Even surface love can be not necessarily between two people that are romantically together. It can be co-workers, someone you work with for 30 years, you know what I mean? You have a bond, you have a loving relationship. That can be surface love. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. They're just different levels of this thing we call love, baby.
Talk more about surface love.
Okay.
So, like, can surface love be like, oh, you meet somebody, like, let's say, who needs money or they need food or something, and you can have compassion for them, but yet you don't love them. Is that surface love?
No. I would say...
Like, your heart goes out to them, and
I interpret surface love as, I don't want to say a negative connotation, but it's not, I interpret it almost as, it's not like a true love is unconditional, and unconditional means no matter the conditions, I care about this person no matter what, whether they're mean to me or whether they're nice to me, whether they're hurting me or they're not. It doesn't matter what the conditions are, the love stays there.
Do you believe there are different levels of love?
Absolutely.
I don't know if I would consider that love. That's why I think it's what you're calling the umbrella. I'm thinking that people take those different emotions that you said are under the umbrella
and call them love.
And they think that it's love.
Mm-hmm.
But
the thing is it our perception or their perception? Because two people who are in that space could say, this is absolute love, but that may be all they've ever known. So it's their version of love.
And it's all perception, because
right?
I'm not right and Joe's not right.
People can steal the word love and use it any way they want.
Yeah.
How many times people have beaten other people, in relationships? Oh, I really love her. And they beat the crap out of each other. I mean.
And the difference is they just love themselves less.
Yeah, so they're using that term, the way they want it. But on the general scope of things, certain things, I think love is action. You can say love. A lot of people say love, but they don't back it up. And to me, if you don't back it up, it's all words.
And I think it's less action. I think it's a state of being.
For me,
but the actions are going to be inspired from that state of being. So It's not that, again, it's not that we're wrong. It's just different perspective on it. But
it's a combination maybe too.
Yeah.
For me, it's a feeling. It's a feeling of what I feel inside. And I have to say that the closest thing I know is from that deep unconditional love is my dog. Mm-hmm. I love him, and I come home 2 minutes later or 5 minutes later or an hour later or 8 hours later, it's the same excitement.
Yep.
And for me, I was like, I want that level of love and appreciation. Because you think about even animals abused, neglected, taken advantage of, they still show up for their owners. They still show up. So that's kind of my gauge because that's all I know, because I have to say I grew up with a lot of conditional love. Mm-hmm. If you don't do this, and I have to say even our family, You know, well, you didn't do this, so I'm going to pull my love away. And that's kind of like, I think what a lot of people grow up with, you know, broken homes, things like that. So
They use it as a weapon.
even the idea of love, to even, you know, like I said, to even go into that in that space, I feel like it's individual for everyone.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's not surface, unconditional, conditional, whatever. It's just a level of love.
Yeah. Everyone perceives it differently. And that's the biggest thing. And talking about conditional love, you know, growing up, you know, I think about that raising my son, because when he does something that's dangerous, I need to, reprimand him in a way. But part of me is always conscious of the fact, like, I hope he doesn't think that I'm not loving him now. You know, when he gets upset, it's like, look, I love you, but you can't go punching people in the face, or you can't, you know, be swinging that broomstick around and hitting the dog. You know, it's like, it's one of those hard things to do, though, because what is right? You know, like, because what I perceive as love is protecting him, but that's not maybe how he perceives it.
Yeah.
You know? And
you don't know because he's not able to articulate that at such a young age.
Yeah.
That's why you're the adult.
Yeah.
Am I?
Well, I think, you know, his love to you is probably unconditional. Your love to him is unconditional. But that's why you have issues saying, all right, I got to spank him because, you know, he keeps putting his hand in the flame or, on, you know, on the stove or something because I have to teach him.
Yeah.
You know, but you still have unconditional love, but you think you don't because you
have to reprimand him.
You're reprimanding him.
But I think too.
But in the big picture, it's you want him not to burn his hand.
That's also fear love too, right? I'm going to react this way because it's fear, because you love him so much that you don't want him to get hurt, right? And I think a lot of people fear love, like as one word, like fear love, not fear love, afraid of it, but fear love on somebody, like don't do this because this will happen, and they instill all this negativity in it, like oh my gosh. Even like the kids driving, you know what I mean? Don't do this, make sure that. So you're putting this fear love into it, which attaches to drama and fear, and
it's a powerful thing. It can be misused.
And
we see that a lot.
And you can see how people perceive love as something that is conditional. Because, and there are times too with my son that, you know, I can get frustrated. And so even though I have an unconditional love for him, my actions don't express that sometimes. You know, when it's 12:30 at night and we're exhausted trying to sleep and he's still jumping on our heads and stuff, you know, and it's like, lay down, go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that I don't love him in that moment, but my actions aren't expressing that unconditional love. They're expressing frustration and
that goes
being tired.
To self-love. In that moment, you need to self-love yourself because you need to get to sleep. You have to work. So really, in that moment, it's like you're kind of reacting from that space of, I need to sleep, I'm tired, we got to this are the rules, but really comes from that place of self-love, right? Like you've got to set boundaries for yourself. Yeah. Even though you love your son, you really got to set those boundaries for yourself. Yeah.
I just hate the fact that you have to, or in these situations, I have to put him in a place of being sad and upset because he doesn't listen until he gets to that point, you know? So like he gets upset because I'm trying to do this, and you know, and then the other part, then you feel guilty about it, and it's all that crap that's attached to
love.
Yeah. But the actual, and that's the thing, but the actual love behind it is that unconditional.
It's always there. It's always there. And I think that's a part of being human, you know, and again, we can also see that we don't separate from unconditional love. You separate from people and, you know, experiences. And I think that goes back to the self-love. I think people so much lack that inner self-love and compassion for themselves that they're constantly going externally. Love me, love me, love me.
Exactly.
Law of attraction. Now they're vibrating that same energy that's in that space.
Yeah.
I think we come here with unconditional love. I think as we interact with other people through lessons as we grow, a lot of people shut down and never discover unconditional love, unfortunately.
And I think a lot of times, you know, it's stuff that happens when you're raising a kid. You know, like Solomon might get older and say, oh, well, to have my father's love, I need to not jump on his head at 12:30 at night. So And now he's created a condition to love. So now his interpretation of love is conditional. And I think that unfortunately naturally happens in the process. As much as I try not to do that, you know, I can still see how it can happen just even in the way I'm trying to raise him, you know, and so I always try to say, look, I love you. I'm not upset at you, but I need sleep and I need this. But before you can say that to him, you got to get him to a point of listening, which is that other part.
Come here, kid.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't developed, you know, his rational thinking yet and things like that. So, you know, so I don't think he necessarily is going to hate you when he's, you know, 18. He wants to jump in your head.
But you know what I mean, though? But through things like that, you can see how a child learns that love's conditional. If I do this, my parents are happy, they love me. If I don't, they're upset at me. So they start creating conditions around the love, and that's how it becomes perceived. And I think that probably naturally happens through the human experience. You know,
I think people don't do it out of self-preservation. Preservation. Like, I don't want to give unconditional love because if I break up with this person, I'm not going to be able to handle that. You know.
Yeah.
And they all hold it back.
Yeah,
but
they have the walls and hold back.
And the amazing thing about that is that means they never really were giving unconditional love to begin with. But they think that by giving all they have to somebody, that's unconditional love, when unconditional love might be taking care of yourself and being there for them when you can.
Right. You should be, right. That's a good point. You can give the unconditional love, but let it go. As soon as you have that attachment to it, so if things don't work out, it's like, you know, it's like the person, you know, it kind of...
The conditions are affecting how you feel.
When it shouldn't have been. It's like, you know, I love this particular person at this time, and that's that. It's not like, you know, we're going to go back in history and all of a sudden, oh, I really didn't love that person. You either do or you don't.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, after reading The Untethered Soul, have you read that?
I have not.
Have you read that? Oh, such a good book. One of the big key messages in that book is to keep your heart open. Regardless of what's happened, however you're triggered, allow yourself to breathe through it, you know, and then refuse to close down your heart. And that's what happens with a lot of people when they have an experience that's too painful. Their heart, their chest clenches, right? They close up, and then their mind goes to all the bad things that happened, all the experiences. And so recently, through my changes and the experiences that I'm having in my life and my relationships, I refuse to close down my heart. And so every time, and don't get me wrong, it's painful and it's sad, but in that moment, I refuse to build up walls and hardness and stuff around my heart. So each time sadness comes up, or something that somebody said to me, or the experience, I allow it to kind of just move through my body. I breathe through it, but I refuse to let the chest clench, but not in a way where I'm fighting it. I'm allowing myself to feel it. Yeah. And I think that goes back to the deeper sense of self-love, that I am not going to let or allow any outside forces affect me anymore. And I have to say, I think it goes back to the law of attraction. When you truly love yourself, you're not putting attachments on anybody else, right? Like this experience, or this, I really needed to have fun and this didn't go well, or I needed to be with this person because they like to travel or anything like that. And I'm learning that now, that no matter where I am, I truly, deeply love myself, which gives me the ability to love people on a deeper level despite their faults and their challenges and their difficulties. So it is a process of moving through, you know, but again, I've declared that I'm not going to shut down anymore because it's painful and my body's affected by it, my mind, my energy, my experiences.
That's a great point. You have to have internal unconditional love before you can give it.
And I think most people are giving from that fear love, you know, that, oh my gosh, I have to be with this person because where will I find somebody else? And I think love is the ultimate core of this planet. This is why people do what they do, for the act of love, right? This is why people act crazy. This is why people do these things, because, to be loved. And I think that's what the question went back to, is like, if people were taught how to truly love themselves deep within, you know, so even like with Solomon, hey, Solomon, love yourself, you know, love the person that you are. You might make daddy upset with your actions, but make sure you still love yourself, or, do you know what I mean? And I think that that's where the damage comes in. When you love them, but then now you're working with their self-esteem, and I don't think you do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. Like, I don't think by you setting boundaries and disciplining him, however you do that, I don't think it's you telling him you don't love him.
Yeah.
I think it's setting boundaries and saying, hey, life is rules. Like, we have to stop at stop signs.
Yeah.
You can't drink and drive. Like, there are just things that protect people. But if you can go to the core, and I think it goes to where you're, why are you so stupid? Or why this? Or why that? I think that is where the seeds are planted of the lack of love, because now they're, even when I do it to my dog,
Yeah.
I'm very, very careful not to call him a bad boy.
Yep.
You know, I may say you do bad boy things, but I don't say that, because that vibration, that word, right, radiates out. And I think that's the difference. If so many people, so many children aren't learned to really love. And I think more parents are clued into that now, like you and your wife and things like that. I see more people now respecting them, giving them a say. And I think that in the long run will produce more energy of love in the future. I think our generation is really shifting that vibration.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There was someone at the church recently that was talking, and they said, you know, how it's not until you realize that you don't need the love of your parents that you can truly, you know, accept things for the way they are and accept the relationships for what they are, and then begin to love them for who they really are, you know, and that comes down to that self-love.
Well, that gets into like the hierarchy of all social interactions, you know?
Well,
when can I love this person? When they're an equal? Or if they're above me, is it a different type of love? Like you said, a parental love? When, you know, that's a social interaction type. That we morph love and change it depending on where we are in life. Like a young child is going to have more unconditional love than someone in their 40s. Just, I don't know if they're more jaded or other situations.
Life experience.
And so it's all the same. It's just where we fit in at a particular time and moment in our development.
Yeah. And I have to say, there are billions of 40-year-old people in this world, and they're all at different places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The experiences. And I have to say, I think it goes back to growth as well. And so, you know, that lady, you know, or the core of it is spiritual growth. Like when you're expanding your experiences, when you're going within to really understand why things are happening, going in that space. Again, I think that 40-year-old advancing in that way can have the excitement, the joy, the innocence of a 10-year-old, or not 10's a tough age. Let's go back to like 4 or 5, right? Like, I think you can harness that. But again, I think there's some point of self-awareness. I think there's this story that I read online where this little boy had a package of a glow stick, and he wanted to open the glow stick. So the mom opens the package of the glow stick, and he's got this stick in his hand. And he was very happy and content with this glow stick. And then it goes on to say that his brother took the glow stick from him. And the kid goes into like a full-on meltdown. What he didn't realize or know is what his brother was breaking the glow stick, so that it would glow. So the kid had the glow stick, and he was very much content with the glow stick. But once it was taken away, his brother was saying, I still love you. I'm not punishing you. The kid didn't know that.
Yep.
But yet he was breaking the glow stick. And when he gave it back to him, it was better than when he had it taken away. And I think that's happened so much in life, where people say, this was taken away from me, or that was taken away from me. And again, people for their whole lives can be happy with what they have. But I think at some point that universal energy or spiritual growth or that vibration says, but there can be something more. And I think that that's the depth of love. You know, every once in a while with the experiences taken away.
Well,
right?
maybe people should stop taking people's stuff away.
I know. But if they didn't, they wouldn't know that there might be something better.
Who's better? You're better or they're better? Yeah. I know we try to help people, and at some point we have to kind of like, they have to be on their own.
Well, I think that it was more of like, that's God. Like the big brother was God. And sometimes God has to push us out of jobs and experiences and relationships right? When we want more. So I think on some energetic level, when you want more, things are going to naturally shift and change around you, right?
Well, I think what happens with that is when you're putting that desire out there, who you are is expanding. And if you're not expanding with it, things get uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And as things are expanding, the old creations that you have start to break down.
Yeah.
If everything's not expanding with that growth,
Mm-hmm.
then things start to break down, and that's when the glow stick gets taken away. I don't think it's
Yeah.
anything consciously happening. I think it's part of the program of the universe.
Absolutely. It's part of the process.
Yeah, as anything that expands, if the structure that's supporting it doesn't expand with it, eventually that structure is going to fall apart.
Yeah. And I think that's what happens is that change and going with the flow and allowing the experience to be what they are. I think that's what keeps people in these ties and binds of jobs and relationships and families, right? And I think that's in lies the suffering. And then what happens is they internalize it on themselves.
I think
right?
it's really complex.
Mm-hmm.
I think, we have all this stuff, but once we start interacting with people, sometimes we take the easy way out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And by doing that, we create other problems and other experiences that we need to grow. And I think love is like, it's like the baseball in a baseball game, or it's the football in a football game. I mean, people do with it different things with it, but it's the main thing in all the relationships to be able to play the game of life.
Mm-hmm.
You need love.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's great and some of it's not great. It depends on the players.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
A little deep there, people.
Hi, everybody. If you like what you watched, please subscribe on YouTube and like us on Facebook. And check out our website at alwaysconsiderthesource.com.
Hey, if you want us to come out to your location and do a live setup, we'd love to do that. Continue to send in your questions, and we look forward to interacting with you.
And remember, always consider the source.